know that your love of animals extends into all sorts of parts of your life and career, and you're also a trustee for an animal sanctuary, the Hopefield Animal Sanctuary. How did you get involved in that, and what kind of drives you to do that work?
So I went to Hopefield Animal Sanctuary about 10 years ago. I visited there, and actually my manager, who is from Essex, she would go there as a kid. So it's been there for years. It was kind of a little sanctuary. They had a lot of horses, mainly a horse rescue. And she knew I loved animals, so she invited me down one day, and I just fell in love with the place. I met one of the owners, Ernie, who was quite old at the time. He'd had the place about 27 years, and he was quite fragile and frail. And I just kept going down there, visiting, volunteering, hanging out. And he asked me one day, he said, would you be able to continue the sanctuary on? And I said, yeah, of course, of course. And a little while later, he passed away. So I took it on with some other trustees, his son, Nicola, who had been there for years, and two of the managers. And yeah, we've kind of just been rebuilding it. It was quite run down when I got involved. There was a lack of funding. There was a lot that needed to happen. So we kind of got it to a place where we're sustaining it now. And we have all different kinds of animals, lots of horses, lots of farm animals, and all of them are basically rescued from abuse and neglect situations. So it can be quite sad to hear some of their stories. And we've got like one of the oldest horses as well there. She's like 45 years old. I've never met a horse this old, but
Should they be that old? I'm naive to it. I don't know.
I didn't know. I thought horses lived till about late 20s. But this girl is old. Like, she's got one eye. She's like a little skeleton. She's so cute. But that's the kind of lives that they have there, stress-free. A lot of them have been abandoned, or just literally we'll get people that call us. And the other day, it was awful. Someone had found a kitten tied in a plastic bag on the side of the street. He had one leg missing. Like, it was some of the animals that we get through there. It's really shocking. And you kind of, like, how can somebody do this? It's horrible.
I just don't get it. Like, the animal cruelty thing, I just don't get it. Like, my parents have just got a new dog. They just rescued this gorgeous dog called Wilma from the Chinese meat markets. They've been working for like 6 months to get her flown over, and eventually they've managed it. And she landed here this summer, and she is, considering what she's been through, she is the most gorgeous dog. She's so chilled out, super well behaved. She's trained, so I'm imagining she was a domestic pet beforehand.
Yeah.
And she loves my parents. She's following my dad everywhere. And my daughter doesn't love dogs, but she loves Wilma because she's so placid. And if you can do it, rescuing an animal rather than buying a pedigree pet or whatever is just such a beautiful thing to do.
Yeah, I love that they did that, because those meat markets it's a lot of, it's horrible what goes on. So that's amazing that she's rescued, and she's probably so grateful as well, like, to be there and to be saved. And that's what I love about Hopefield and being around the animals there. You see this, you can rebuild a trust with an animal that's been abused, and there is a process that goes into it, but once you see that, it's just such a beautiful thing. And yeah, just being around that for me is just so calming, and just being back in nature, being back in our natural place is important.
And having that relationship, that right relationship with nature. And one of the easiest ways, I guess, is with pets, because if you've got pets, that there is a relationship, and it's a beautiful, unique relationship, but also extending that to, all of these beautiful animals you're talking about, whether it's horses, farm animals, etc. It's such a lovely thing. And how was the sanctuary affected during the pandemic? Because I know obviously so many charities have been hit so hard because the focus has only been on the pandemic, but there's all these other crises that are happening globally that are getting just no attention, obviously no government support. And there's a bunch of charities that I work with that have had an extremely tough time, you know, certainly sort of cancer charities, because all of a sudden cancer wasn't even being looked at. And it's stuff like this as well, you know, with animal charities. We can't forget about these setups because they need the attention and they need funding. How have you guys coped through it?
Yeah, that was really difficult, because animals sanctuaries and charities are usually like the kind of last on the pecking order. So our funding went right down, like we were getting nothing, and obviously like people were worried about what they're going to do, where they're getting their money from. Like it was a knock-on effect. So Hopefield got hit really hard. I had to just reach out to a lot of people, and really just kind of garner a lot of support myself. We obviously had like reserves for rainy days, which the pandemic was. So luckily we had something to get us through. And actually, when we reopened, we had a ton of people visiting. So that was great because that sent more donations our way. So luckily, when we were able to open, because it's all outside, we could open a bit quicker. Our funding was able to resume, but it was really tough. For a minute, we were really, really worried that we might have to just close. And that just would have been awful. So it was hard. It was really tough.
No, I bet. And because you know the animals there personally, I can't imagine it. And, you know, I just really hope that all charities that have been hit and are suffering at the moment just get a real influx of you know, awareness to them now. We certainly need that.